Welcome to HED Tagging 101. My name is Kay Robbins. I'm a member of the HED Working Group. Today we're going to show how to annotate the events in your BIDS dataset using HED. HED stands for Hierarchical Event Descriptors. It's a path to user-friendly, analysis-ready event annotation. BIDS stands for Brain Imaging Data Structure. It's a standardized format for neuroimaging datasets. Now, a typical timeline for an experiment has a number of occurrences which are marked by what are termed as events. BIDS represents these events using a tab-separated value file, an example of which is shown here. And if you look at the event type column, you can see the correspondence between the user-chosen names in this column and markers that are on the timeline corresponding to this experiment. The onset column gives the actual time relative to the start of the recording of the neuroimaging data. So today, our task is to annotate this data using HED so that it can be used in downstream analysis without user coding or intervention. So the way we're going to do that is to create a JSON sidecar with the annotations. And we're going to start by creating a template using the HED online tools. So here I have the online tools, and I'm going to select the events option. I'm going to generate a sidecar template from this events file. So let me browse, and I'm going to browse to this particular events file, which is this one. And the server reads the file, lists the column names, and in parentheses lists the unique entries in that column. So the onset, as expected, has an entry for each marker in the event file. We're going to annotate the event type and the face type column. And we're also going to annotate the trial and the stim file columns. Now, the event type and the face type, we're going to annotate each individual unique item in those columns. So those are going to be treated as categorical columns, whereas the other columns are going to just be annotated using a template. So when I press process, I generate a file and it is saved. And let me just show you the result of that. That's here. And now I'm going to begin my HED annotation, and I'm going to do it using a recipe. And we have a simple recipe online for doing the most basic annotation. And the most important step is to pick the kind of event it is. And the event types happen in this situation to be in the event type column. So in particular, show face is a sensory event. And if so, let me just put in the HED tag, replace this template tag, which is a valid HED tag, with sensor event. Now, some of the other tags like show circle and show cross are also sensory events. So let me start with that. And show face initial is also one. It's just a special designation because the first trial was a little different. Now, the double press, left press, and right press are agent action events. So let me annotate those. And initially, we start with the very basics. So let me also, the setup was a condition variable that users should press the right key when the face is above average symmetry. So I'm going to annotate this as a condition variable. And even if I don't put any information about what that condition variable represents, it's useful because it allows tools to automatically select and pick out what the condition variables are and where they apply in the data. So I have a couple of other condition variables. In particular, the face type was a condition variable. And so I'm going to annotate it with the condition variable. And the name of that condition variable is arbitrary. I'm just going to use what was used in the column value. So I'll have face type and scrambled face. Now, in a more advanced annotation, I would put additional tags here using definitions and a more sophisticated approach. But the simplest approach is useful as well. So the trial, I'm going to annotate as a value column rather than a categorical column. And experimental trial is a head tag. And when I put the number sign in the annotation, what will happen is the value from the trial column will be substituted here in the final assembly of the head annotation. Same thing with the stimulus column, which had file names of the various stimuli. So if I do path name and number sign, my head annotation is complete. Now, clearly, I'm going to want to put additional tags to modify to distinguish the various sensory events and agent actions. But this is a good start, and it's always good to validate as you go. So I'm going to save this validation in JSON temp, and then I'm going to use the sidecar validation to validate it. And here's my new JSON temp, which I just saved. And I'm going to process it. And it says I have no validation errors. That's good news. And then I can continue adding annotations and iteratively validating them. So just to give you an example of where we would go with this, in the most straightforward annotation, which is basically following this recipe, I would end up with something like this, where I've expanded the agent actions and the various sensory events. But I've also provided text descriptions, which are very important for downstream analysis, for clarity and for usability. So I've finished my annotation. The only thing I have left to do is to save the JSON sidecar and put it at the top level of my BIDS data set. It will apply to all the event files in the data set, and I'm done. So thank you for listening to our tutorial. There's a lot of information online about the details of how to do this. Let me just put that up here. So the most important link is this www.headresources.org, because it has the links to everything else. The online tools are available at headtools.ucsd.edu/head. So thank you for your attention.